Erik Halterman of RotoWire here with 6 players to pick up this week. And in a first this season, I'm going to kick off this video with a player who has not yet even been called up yet. That's Nick Kurtz of the Athletics. Now, Kurtz, we don't have a lot of professional statistical data on him. He was just picked in last year's draft 4th overall, but all of the data we have on him is pretty much universally excellent. In 12 games last year, after being drafted, he had a 1283 OPS. He had a 1058 OPS in the Arizona Fall League, and now he has an 1134 OPS in 16 games this season. And to the extent that we care about college stats, he had a 1283 OPS at Wake Forest. Point is here, Nick Kurtz has done nothing but mash at every single level, and he should be set to do the same thing in a very hitter-friendly home park in Sacramento before too long. The big signal that Kurtz is coming up soon and that it's worth stashing him now is the fact that Brent Rooker has started spending some time in the outfield. Kurtz is a first base / DH only type of player, and the A's already have Tyler Soderstrom at first and Brent Rooker at DH. If Rooker moves out of the outfield, though, Kurtz and Soderstrom should be able to split first base and DH for the rest of the season. And that trio should give the A's a pretty scary heart of the order, especially once it starts to heat up in Sacramento. Another young player is next on our list, Chase Meidroth, who was just called up by the White Sox and is eligible at potentially second base, third base, and shortstop in your league. Meidroth changed his socks from red to white in the Garrett Crochet trade over the winter, and he actually just broke up a Garrett Crochet no-hitter in the 8th inning just a few days ago. Meidroth is an unusual prospect. He has as good plate discipline as you'll ever see. Last year, he had a 19% walk rate to go with a 13% strikeout rate, and that's not the first time he's had more walks than strikeouts in the minors. And actually, through 6 major league games, it's 5 walks and 3 strikeouts for Meidroth, so looks like the same kind of guy. Expect him to run a good on-base percentage because he makes enough contact that he should have a respectable at worst batting average and a great walk rate on top of that. Although that assumes that pitchers aren't going to be afraid to just pound the zone and knock the bat right out of his hands. That is the downside here with Meidroth. He topped out at 9 homers in the minors. Also doesn't run a ton, maxed out at 13 steals. So that lack of power and speed definitely hurts him in a shallower roto league, but he's worth a look almost anywhere else, especially in a points league where you care about strikeouts and walks, for example. There's a pathway to tons of playing time for the White Sox, who don't really have anyone else, and Meidroth has already moved up to the leadoff spot where it looks like he has the skill set to stick. So between the playing time and the role and the plate discipline, there's enough here to give Meidroth a chance, even if the homers and steals don't exactly pop. Up next, we've got Austin Hayes, outfielder for the Reds, who missed the start of the season with a minor calf injury. Looks like an everyday player now in a great hitter's park, though. He's settling into the cleanup spot ever since returning from the IL a few days ago. Hayes doesn't really have to be that good if he's an everyday cleanup hitter at Great American Ballpark, though he does have to be better than last year. He had a career-low 699 OPS with just 5 homers in 85 games. Now, he did miss time with injuries and a kidney infection, something that seems to have affected his performance even when he was able to play through it. Over the previous 3 years before last year, though, Hayes hit .261 with a 752 OPS, averaging 19 homers per 600 plate appearances. That's nothing special, but when you add in that everyday cleanup job at one of the league's best hitters' parks, that's going to clear the bar in most formats. I'll get to my pitcher pickups in a minute, but first I want to mention something new we've got at RotoWire this season, promo codes. You can use promo code ROTO15 at checkout to receive 15% off any RotoWire product. That's ROTO15. On to the pitchers now. We've got JT Ginn of the Athletics. One thing that we can buy into more than anything else in the early season is velocity changes. For example, if you strike out more batters than expected over the first few starts, we care about that, but you might have just been running hot. If you added 2 ticks of velocity on everything, though, you probably are a meaningfully different pitcher than you were last year. It's hard to run hot in that sort of way, and that seems to be the case with Ginn. Ginn had a decent enough 4.24 ERA in 34 innings last year. That's 6 starts, 2 relief appearances. Slightly below average strikeout rate of 20%, but he made up for it with a 6% walk rate and a 47% ground ball rate, both of which were pretty good marks. But he had a difficult spring and failed to win an opening day roster spot. However, the A's have changed their mind quite quickly. He struck out over half the batters he faced across his first 2 AAA starts and already was recalled. Struck out 6 batters in 5 1/3 innings while allowing just 1 run on 4 hits and 2 walks in his season debut against the Mets. So I don't know for sure just how good JT Ginn is, but I want to add him now and see whether that added velocity has indeed unlocked a new level for a pitcher who looked passable enough beforehand. Up next, we've got Hayden Wesneski, who is now an Astro after coming over from the Cubs in the Kyle Tucker trade. Wesneski has shown flashes before as a swingman, but generally found more success as a reliever, had a 3.56 ERA in that role versus 4.18 as a starter. Wesneski's 4 ERA through 3 starts this year looks like more of the same, where he remains usable but not particularly exciting, but dig a little deeper and you'll be pretty encouraged, I would say. That ERA comes with a 0.72 whip and some really promising ERA estimators, including a 2.66 Sierra. Wesneski struck out 31% of opposing batters, walked just 4%. That's good for 7th in the league by strikeout minus walk rate, which is one of the best single stats to use to get a quick look at a large group of pitchers. We do have to note that Wesneski is a sweeper-heavy pitcher, which tends to bring with it some issues against opposite-handed bats, maybe some homer problems as well, but Wesneski is mixing in a new curveball this year, which gives him one more weapon to help him get out of some tough spots. So add him now and see if those changes have unlocked something new for Hayden Wesneski. And finally, Luis L Ortiz of the Cleveland Guardians. Now, he has a 6.06 ERA and 1.41 whip for the year. Much better Sierra, but at 3.98, that's not particularly special. Ortiz earns a mention here because he's a pitcher who's long had good stuff, but didn't really turn that into particularly notable results with the Pirates. But now he's joined a Guardians team over the winter that is known for its pitching development. We might be seeing some of that development already for Ortiz, who had just 5 strikeouts against 4 walks in his first 2 starts, allowed 10 runs in 10 2/3 innings. But his 3rd time out, this one against a pretty good Royals lineup, he struck out 10, allowed just 1 run on 1 hit and 2 walks in 5 2/3 innings. He threw far more cutters in that last start, which could be a sign of a new attack plan that the Guardians have given him. I'm not yet ready to give Ortiz a ringing endorsement and say he's definitely unlocked his potential, but it's a situation where we were looking for some signs, and we got some signs, so add Ortiz now and see where this goes. That'll do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments if you plan to pick up any of these players, and check out the Saturday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast, where Ryan Boyer and I give you 20 names every week the entire season.